So remember how I said in episode 13 that there was a Harry Potter joke down the line that I really liked, but it wasn't like my favorite? This is so this in episode you can argue is just a giant Harry Potter joke. so okay, so this is episode 17 of the Owl House. This is Wing It Like Witches, which yeah, it's a pretty accurate title because that's pretty much what Luce and company do in this episode. Is this they wing it, and they wing everything they have to go through. So, um, this is another one of my favorite episodes. And I'll say it's because it's a sports episode, and I'm. I do a lot of sports. I don't know if that comes as a surprise to you guys or not. I love watching sports. I love playing sports. I love talking about sports. I love writing sports. So when I saw this episode, I was like, man, this is fun. Like, I've actually heard people say that this is a filler episode. I'd argue it's not. I mean, it's definitely not one of the more heavily story-driven episodes for the season. But there are some moments in this episode that push the narrative a bit. Like, for instance, Luce learns her fourth spell in this episode. It's fire. She learns fire in this episode, and it's pretty clever way she actually learns it too. It happens when a fireball comes through, and so she blocks it with an ice pillar, and then the fireball goes through the pillar, and then Luce catches it, and the smoke's gone. But then from the smoke, there's the fire glyph. Like there's a fire glyph in the smoke in the burnt part of the ball. So then Luce then obviously like she takes one of her notes or post-it note, takes one of her sheets of paper, just puts it over the glyph, and it burns into the paper, and then all of a sudden, bam, fire magic. It's cool. It's a really cool scene. Okay, so let's take it from the top. So Boscha's a jock. Pretty much that's what I mean. Well, I mean, not just her. Her entire group. So like Scara, Amelia, Kat, and Amity too. They all used to play on the Grudgby team, but Amity reveals later that she stopped playing because she did something that she regrets. So yeah, there's that. But I like that. A lot of shows nowadays don't really focus on the sporting aspects of school, and part of the reason is because we've had so many shows where you have the jock, the stereotypical jocks, I guess I should say, because you have the jocks who are the main characters, and then you have the jocks who are not main characters, and they're bullies. And then you have and they're usually meatheads too. So that because you're a jock, that means you're not smart. In a stereotypes, man. Just yeah. Besides, it's not just the heavy hitting sports. You got other sports too. Swimming, track and field, tennis, rifling, water polo. There's that. Okay, I'm really off topic, but okay. So Boscha is not only just a player on the Grudgby team, she's the captain of the Grudgby team and pretty much the star player. And it's Grudgby season at Hexside, so and Amity states later in the episode that's pretty much when Boscha's the most sinister because she's the star player. She's practically untouchable at school. Like you can't really like Will makes a joke how Boscha could probably get away with murder, and even Bumps like, oh, Boscha got away with murder. I like that she's branching out. And and I one thing I do like though is Boscha doesn't come in and immediately try to act like. Well, I mean, she does act like a brat. Well, she does act like a brat, but like she says like you're talented, you are talented, you are a star, you are a winner, all that, and just being overconfident. I wouldn't say overconfident because she technically does have the skills, but she does it really takes the turn when she notices, so like she enters the school and she's expecting a whole crowd, but there's no one there because they're all with Willow, because she's doing a cool thing with plant magic. Like she's able to basically do a photo of a person's face on a plant, so it's pretty cool. And that's pretty much when Boscha is like, okay, we're not gonna give, okay, taking my attention, okay. Like she then makes a joke about, she then like makes fun of Willow, but then Amity steps up for Willow, and that's when, and then Amity like says, I grew up, when are you when are you gonna grow up, because you're only focusing on competition and trying to be better than everyone else. And so it's when Amity says that's when Boscha really gets jealous of Willow getting all the attention, like, because he then turns back to Willow and just like, okay, this is not gonna stand. So I like how it's just it developed. It didn't like just come out of left field, like Boscha sees Willow and like, ha. So again, little details like that, because I doubt they're gonna keep Boscha like this. I mean, heck, I mean, they didn't keep Amity like this. I mean, so we'll see what Boscha hex. I mean, I've seen fanfic and stuff online with Boscha, and it can go many different directions. But yeah, so this is all before Lucy even shows up, and so when she shows up, she's really excited for Grudgby season, and you know, Ida's like, yeah, Ida like, that takes me back. Yeah, I was the star player. Or she was like, I love the gory or something, and then Lucy's like, don't you mean glory? And she's like, nah, that too. So yeah, so Ida has, so part of the episode is Ida and Lilith doing a Grudgby game, which, because Lilith shows up at the Owl House, or really she doesn't, because Hootie like rounds her up and then throws her in the house. So, you know, Lilith shows up and saying, I have to take you in, and so Ida's like, okay, fine, what if we played a game of Grudgby? The winner, and she was like, okay, fine. So that's basically that part of the episode, is Ida challenges Lilith to a Grudgby game. And so because since Ida challenged Lilith to a Grudgby game, you could probably imagine what happens on Lucy's side of the story, because Boscha, like I said, Boscha gets jealous of Willow getting all the attention, so she starts picking on Willow, and she even drops this line like, ever since Grom, Amity's grown soft, and she's been starting to hang out with you guys, I'm just here to remind you who's on top. And I'm like, dang. And so at first she's only picking on Willow, but then Luce and Gus step up for Willow, and so Boscha then takes that as the opportunity to start picking on them. And like I said before, because she's the Grudgby captain, she's practically untouchable. And so Luce has no clue how to deal with it, but then she sees Amity. Amity in this episode, when I saw this the first time, I knew what they were doing, and I didn't know how to feel about it. Like, I definitely get laughs out of this. I was just like, are we really going from the last episode where she was only just a little nervous and they had that epic dance, now to like she's full on blushing at every time Luce is with her? I mean, seriously, Amity in this episode is, I mean, it's, again, okay, and I'm just saying, this was my first, that was when I saw this episode the first time, and then after I watched the episode and I thought back to when I had crushes in school, and I was like thinking, yeah, I probably do these too. I probably do this in front of the girl I'd like, or the someone I wanted to ask out, and just be like, yeah.
I've been talking for too long.
You know, Luce asks for Amity's help on how to deal with Boscha, and Amity just basically says, well, it's Grudgby, so she only speaks Grudgby in a way. So Luce, being Luce, she gets in over her head, and she challenges Boscha to a Grudgby game. Or actually, no, she doesn't say, Boscha, I challenge you to a Grudgby game. She says, Boscha, Willow challenges you to a Grudgby game. I'm like, why are you throwing her under the bus? Like, why can't you just say, I challenge you to a Grudgby game, or something like that? But I guess she's like, well, I challenged Amity to a witch's duel. That didn't go well. Maybe if I say she challenged you to a Grudgby game. It's moments like that where I'm like, Luce, love you as a character, but you really gotta think these things through. So, Boscha, of course, agrees because she thinks it's gonna be a cakewalk, and of course they make their deal. Like if Luce wins, Boscha has to stop picking on them, and if Boscha wins, they have to be their water gophers and targets for practice. We don't see water gophers in this episode, and that really actually that got me mad. I was like, I want to see a water gopher. I mean, I'm guessing it's just water boy, girl, the water team. I mean, again, it would be funny if there are actual water gophers. I hope we see those, but yeah. So, then obviously Will was freaking out because he's like, I've never played Grudgby before, and even Amity's like, yeah, that wasn't probably the smartest move. And so Luce is like, well, come on, then she whips out her Azora. She has an Azora movie, and it's a sports movie. She's like, we're a ragtag group of underdogs. We can do this. All we need is an upbeat attitude, good training, and we got this. And it's like, okay. So then, like Willow obviously Luce convinces Willow. She convinces Gus, and then when she asks Amity drops. I think some of Amity's best lines in the series so far come in this episode. Like she says,
Me? On a team with you? Running around in cute uniforms? Sweating? I gotta go!
It's a funny line. It's just, I mean, it's just the last part, the part where she's just sweating, I was like, what? And then, yeah, so she runs off. And so, obviously, Luce's like, okay, well, she's out. So they go to the field, and they learn a little bit about Grudgby. And like I said at the beginning of this, with the Harry Potter stuff, it's like, it's not full-on Quidditch. Like, I mean, well, who am I kidding? It's like Muggle Quidditch. Like, you've seen those videos on YouTube of, like, people running around with, like, a broomstick, running around with a broomstick in one hand and, like, the quaffle in the other hand. Like, that's basically what this is, except there's no broomsticks. You're just literally running around with the ball, and you're trying to throw it through the goal, while there are a bajillion things on the field that are trying to kill you. And, like, so, Luce is upbeat because she's very into the fact that this is pretty much like a sports movie. She talks about you gotta do a training montage, and Gus is like, what's a montage? And so instead of a montage of them training, it's a montage of Luce showing them what a montage is. And there's a little moment with them dressed up as otters. Or just dressed up in pajamas, drinking tea.
What happens in the montage stays in the montage.
Okay. So, yeah, so Luce, basically, and then Luce does this trick called the thorn vault, and she's like, okay, we can do this, we got this, we just gotta work on our training, we got the finishing move right here, and so she does the thorn vault, which is basically a gigantic plant that sprouts out from the ground to launch someone in the air, launches Gus and Willow, and Gus hurts he has flags and they break when they land. You can probably what they're trying to reference or what the metaphor is there. So Willow basically gives up on it, and she's like, we're gonna lose no matter what. Boscha's gonna pick on us no matter what. So Luce feels bad about it because, like she realizes, crap, I pushed them too hard. I got too in over my head. And then she and Amity have a talk, and then, like I said earlier, Amity tells Luce that she used to be part of the Grudgby team with Boscha and company, but she quit because she won during the championship game. She diverted from the game plan and did her own thing, and so she did the thorn vault like Luce did, and so Amity scored the game-winning goal and won the game, but the thing was she saw what she did, and she accidentally hurted her teammates, and so she felt, obviously the guilt got to her, and so she said she never wanted to do that. She never played again because she never wanted to do something like that again. And then she turns to Luz, and Luz is right in her face, and so she just and she leaps back in fright. Little fun little moments like that. Meanwhile, oh yeah, and meanwhile, Ida and Lilith, like I said, they do their own Grudgby game. They do it outside the Owl House with. They have their makeshift field, make their own goals. King is the scorekeeper, and Hootie is kind of basically the ref, I guess. I mean, he sets the ball and he acts like the defense, all the crap that's trying to kill him on the field. Like he blocks. There's simple ones like trying to block the shots, but then there's ones like trying to swallow them whole. Lilith's running with the ball, and then Hootie sprouts up in the ground and just opens his mouth, so like it's kind of like a bottomless pit. But Lilith jumps in and clears him, so she doesn't. But Ida beats Lilith. It's a close game, and so Ida just edges her out, and so Lilith obviously mad she lost, but then Ida gives her a jewel, or like I think was it her ring or like her earring or something, I forget what it was, but she gives it to Lilith and says, "Tell them I put up a good fight, and that I was lucky to get away," or something like that. So Lilith is like, "All right, but I'm coming back." And so Ida's like, well, "Yeah, well, I'll be waiting." Again, nice little touching moment with that, but yeah. So back at Hexside, Luce, after Amity told her everything, like she basically realizes, yeah, I pushed him too hard, and so she goes to Boscha. Luce goes to Boscha and says, "We forfeit, but I'll take the punishment." So Boscha, like at first, like, "Oh wow, that's a really noble thing for you to do," and then she just like starts throwing stuff at Luce, like literal fireballs. And so Luce is running for her life, trying to avoid it, and so Amity goes to Willow and Gus and convinces them to help Luce after she spouts more very interesting things.
She always gets in over her head. She can be so stupid, which I love. I mean, hate! In any case, she needs you right now, which is sweet. I mean, I hate it, and it's dumb.
You lost me.
I don't know if May Women, I don't know if you're watching this or not, but I imagine you had a blast saying these lines in recording. Oh man, these are fun moments. I mean, I imagine there's gonna be more of these down the line, but I hope it's not as stacked as this episode was. Okay, so Will, Gus, and Amity, they go out and they tell Boscha the game's back on, but then Gus sits out because his flags are still broken. I'm like, I mean, I get why they want Gus in the game, because I mean Amity takes his place, so there's that, but you could have come up with a better excuse, right? Or if Amity's just like, "No, Gus, no, Gus, I got this," or something. Just, I don't know. So, the game itself is it's pretty straightforward. Like, there's some cool scenes. Like, there's one with Willow when she sprouts a plant and like it swallows her up when she has the ball, and it goes underground, and then it moves underground and then it pops up towards the goal, which then Willow just tosses it through, and then bam, they score. And there's what's funny, yeah, that's actually kind of funny. It's like, what's the rule? There are no rules. Just get it in the goal somehow. So, and yeah, there's a lot of creative moments. Like like I said, when Luce learns her fire spell, like she casts on the ball, then she throws it, and then Amity casts it as an abomination's fist, and I hope that didn't hurt. Oh, now I feel it. Ow, ow, ow. Okay, that happened. I thought I had enough room. Okay, fine, let's do it like this. So, ow, that's a bruise. Okay, so Luz throws the fireball on Amity, classes an abomination fist, and uppercuts it through the net. There we go. Uppercuts it through the goal, and so that's another way they scored. But then, of course, since it's Boscha, as a star player and their team, it's back and forth action, and then eventually the game's tied up, and so they go with one last play, which is they do the Thorn Vault, which Moose has the spell, and then she gets the ball, but then Boscha tries to go and tackle her, and he pushes Luce out of the way and takes the tackle by Boscha. The two go down, and so then Luce casts the Thorn Vault and tosses the ball to Willow. Willow runs up the Thorn Vault and scores what seems to be the game-winning goal. Everyone they celebrate, but then the scoreboard then goes for Boscha's team, all of a sudden hits infinity basically, and they're like, what happened? And Boscha caught the rusty smidge, which is the golden snitch, which is their version of the golden snitch. And of course Luce is very confused, and Boscha's like, oh yeah, I caught this little guy, and it means we automatically win. And so Luce pretty much gives what I imagine a lot of fans of Harry Potter, or just people who trying to understand Quidditch, would say.
That just invalidates all our efforts. If catching that thing is so important, why do anything else? There's no reason to watch any of the other players. That's such a stupid rule.
I just love this episode with all this is probably, I think this is my favorite episode because this is how many times I laughed. Just all the jokes and all just the lines and the way they're said. Ow, my hands. Ow. Okay, so like Boscha's like, all right, we're back to the start. We're back to the norm. But then the rest of Boscha's team, like, they go to Will and Luce and like say, hey, that was a great game. That was awesome. You guys did great. Thanks for, because Luce being Luce, she anytime the other team scored the goal, she was like, nice shot, nice work. And so, she was basically rubbing off on them. And so, very, again, I imagine in the second season, or hopefully, maybe a third season, third season. I imagine all these people we're gonna be good friends by the end of it. I don't know if they're gonna be as main characters as Amity has become. I imagine Boscha might. Again, I don't know the rest of the group, but you never know. So, they say good game, and all that. But then, Amity actually hurt her leg, which is apparently more serious. Like, she's in a boot. Well, she's not in a boot. She's in a cast. Like, her foot gets in a cast. She's on crutches by the end of the episode, which is that's pretty rough. But then I think easily the best Amity line in the episode. Like, so she's on the ground and Luce offers to help her up, but then Amity's like, oh no, I'm fine, and then Luce is just like,
And scoop. Oh, wow, sports.
It's so fucking. It's so fun. It's so fun. I don't really know what else to say about that. It's just so fun. Oh, my hand. Ow, my hand. It's not that. Okay, it's not that bad. It's not a bruise. I thought it was, but it's just a bump. It's just a little bit. Ow. Okay, so they go back to the Owl House with Amity shows up with their cast, and oh yeah, they do a montage of all that. So, but it ends on a pretty nice note with them at the Owl House. They're all drinking tea. I think it's tea, like just a really touching moment, and it's nice to know that Amity is pretty much officially part of the group with this. And the last two episodes, we don't see her, like, she gets a scene in each one, but they're not really that big. Like, one of them is a joke, the other one is just like a bystander view of what's going on. But other than that, this is pretty much her last big episode of the season. But again, season 2, can't wait to see what more they do with her and Luce's relationship. And hopefully, like I said, I hope they develop Boscha a little bit more, because she's especially this time around in this episode, I actually kind of was like, wow, she's got some fun. She's got her own good lines, doesn't she? Like, I mean, they're bully lines, but still, they're not terrible. Yeah. So that's pretty much the main gist of the Owl House for this point, because the next two episodes, it's technically a two-part episode. I mean, they don't say like blank part 1, blank part 2, but like at the end of the next episode they say to be continued, so there's that. So I'm not gonna do them back to back. I'm not doing them in one. I want to talk about each episode separately because there's a lot that goes down in both of them, like, oh boy. So alright, yeah, that's that.